After reading Allegory of the Cave, we all worked together and discussed the true meaning and the deeper meaning behind it. And what we came together and realized was that the Allegory of the Cave is based off of perception, and it's really the way you view things. Personally, this applies even in our world today, especially with the Brooklyn Nets. So I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan, and watching and hearing about the Nets practicing and when they scrimmage against each other, they look really good. They look like they could be a winning team competing for a championship. But in the grand scheme of things, when the real season starts and they play all these other teams and they end up getting blown out, they really don't look that good anymore. And that's really similar to the Allegory of the Cave. And the reason why it's similar is because when the people are in the cave, everything they see in the cave looks incredible, and it looks, the top of the line life looks awesome. But when they leave the cave, they truly see that there are better things out there, and the cave looks so much smaller and looks less magnificent compared to the real world. And I think that that this is why people can believe in an illusion but also accept it as a reality, because if you only look if you have such a narrow vision looking at one particular thing, it looks, that's all you would believe, that's what you would think. But once you have a bigger picture and you look at everything at a more grand level, it definitely changes the way you think. So Nick, have you ever felt the same way about something similar?
Yeah, in the Allegory of the Cave, when the prisoner was freed and went outside and saw all these amazing figures, he was shocked at first. But when he went back to talk to the other prisoners, he wanted to free them because he wanted everybody to experience what he experienced. They didn't believe him, and they were frustrated and very angry because they wanted to think of what they saw as real life, and they couldn't comprehend what he saw. So when an illusion is shattered in our real world, people are sometimes upset, frustrated, and even disappointed because their illusion might have been better than reality, and they don't want to get that image out of their minds. Their disappointment is placed on them right away, and they can never go back. So when you're describing modern life with caves and imprisonment, I believe, because I've been a part of this, that if somebody is a follower instead of a leader, they feel imprisoned because they always follow the leader because that's the only way they know how to do. And when they are detached from that leader, they cannot live their lives to the fullest. And that's what I've known in my life and in a lot of other people's lives. There is a realization of real versus what you know in your heart.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that there's a big distinction between what there actually is and what you think there is, or what you want to see. But a good example of this was the Batman vs Superman movie. It was Batman and Superman in a movie together, one of the most overhyped movies of all time, and everybody was hyping this movie up. And you go to see it, and it wasn't nearly as good as anybody had hoped or wanted to be. It was a complete mess. But still some people couldn't believe, they were in utter disbelief that the movie was that bad, and they just kind of refused to believe it, and they lived in their own disillusion. But that's not the only way, obviously, that your mind could be kind of controlled, or not controlled, but I'd say shackled, imprisoned. A good thing, another thing, just stigmas on society. If you tell somebody that they're not good at something, then in their mind they're not going to be good at it. They'll definitely do worse because you told them they're not as good. When people say, "Oh, Matt, you're terrible at this," I automatically do worse just because that's what everybody thinks of me.
So it's like a reverse psychology.
It's like a reverse psychology
Exactly.
thing, yeah. So what society thinks of you is definitely a shackle on your mind.
A change in perception.
Yeah, it's definitely a change in perception. So I guess it's all basically building on the same point here, that what you want to see isn't necessarily the truth.
Yeah, and the cave well, first let me go with the shadow. The shadow in the allegory represents the object being perceived. So, I don't know, you may look at a Tesla, which is a really nice car, and one person may look at it and say it's really nice, one person may look at it and say it's horrible. So, the cave is what perception of the object is, like what I just said before. It's whether you think it's nice or not. And the sun, fire, and the statue in the allegory represents reality. So the Tesla is a really expensive car, so any way you play it, it's really expensive and it's of great value. So whether you like the car or not, it doesn't matter. That's reality. It's a really expensive car. So as my mother always used to say, things are not always what they seem.
And I think lastly, the biggest thing that I took from the allegory of the cave is that not everything is what it seems, and you have to look at everything in a bigger picture. You can't just think about one thing and look at one thing and say that's what it has to be. You have to think about all the other aspects that are involved. Just like the people did once they left the cave, they realized how many other things are out there and that the cave isn't everything.
You have to look at the overall picture where your mind cannot be so self-centered and only think about yourself and what you want to think about. You have to think from the perspective of others and of the group itself.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think it shows how profound what Plato's saying is, that it holds up relevancy even today, like however many centuries later, and we're still using it. And I think that just look at how science has changed our point of view over time. Well, we once used to view things as like demons, and witches. We actually know the more logical reasoning behind it. So I definitely think that perspective is everything. So.